Hey everybody, it's Barb from Making at Home. Today I'm going to show you a simple DIY on how to make homemade healthy fruit roll-ups. The way I do this is oftentimes I find some jam that I need to rotate through my pantry, in other words, use up. I'll take the jam and then I will put it in the dehydrator and use it as fruit roll-ups. The other way you can do this if you don't have preserves or jam on hand that you want to use is to blend up in your food processor or your blender some fresh or frozen berries, doesn't matter what kind. You can sweeten it with whatever you like to your preferred level of sweetness. That's the healthy part that comes in. If you want to reduce sugars that your kids or your family are eating, you can cut back a little bit on the sugars. The whole point of this is that fruit roll-ups in the grocery store are not cheap and they're usually made with high fructose corn syrup. So in order to avoid that, we just make it ourselves. This DIY is super easy. It takes a little time because you're going to be spending it. Takes about 5.5 to 6 hours in the dehydrator to get to the point where it's considered a fruit roll-up. But there's only a couple things you need to have on hand. If you have jam, just jam, the dehydrator, which I will provide links for in the description box below, the one that I use, and the little trays. If you want to make more than just what I made, you can get the extra trays also online. It's real easy. You just whip it up, spread it out onto the tray, and put it in the dehydrator and wait. The only other thing you need is either parchment paper or wax paper. Let's get to the DIY. So for this project, you're going to need, of course, a dehydrator, and this is the brand of dehydrator I use. It comes with, I believe, 5 trays. It also comes with this like plastic liners, and this is what you need to do the fruit leather, is one of these plastic liners, because that's what we're going to spread it on. So I'm going to be doing this the very easy way, and that is by using a jar of my canned raspberry jam that I canned last year. The reason I'm doing that is because it needs used, because we actually made some fresh for this year, and it's easier because you can just take it straight out of the jam jar and start spreading it. And it looks kind of gross. It's very dark red. And you can just start spreading it in a thin layer, or an even layer, I should say, through the entire sheet. And that's what you want to do. You want to keep it kind of thin. You don't want it too thick or it'll take a really long time to dry, dehydrate, and become fruit leather. So that's what I do. Another method would be to take fresh or frozen raspberries and put them in like a food processor or a blender. And if you want to make it super healthy, add just a little bit of honey or a little bit of your own, preferred sweetener until you get a nice sweet flavor, and then start here and spread it onto the dehydrator sheet that way. But I'm using the cheap method. Like I said, I'm using my raspberry jam. So this is super easy. Anybody can do it. All you have to do is check the instructions on your dehydrator, and you're going to be using the fruit setting. So on mine, the fruit setting is 135 degrees. So I go over here and turn that down to 135 degrees. So once I've got this, sorry guys, once I've got this spread out evenly, I put it over onto this tray and then put the top on and plug it in and let it run. I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then I'm going to come back tomorrow and we're going to see the result. For you, all you have to do is just run it until when you touch the fruit leather, it's not super sticky anymore. It's more firm. It's still going to be a little sticky, but it's not going to like come off on your finger. I'll show you what that looks like when we come back after I have finished dehydrating it. So now that we have dehydrated our jam, and I just want to make a note. You see how it's very seedy? I just left the jam the way it was. If you're doing this with a puree of raspberries, like you took fresh or frozen berries and put them in a food processor or a blender, you can also strain out the seeds if that's something that you don't like. It took me about 5.5 to 6 hours to dehydrate this, and you'll notice I didn't quite have enough to fill up the entire tray. And I did use a full pint jar of jam, so that'll kind of give you an idea of how much fills up a tray. I want to say it would probably take about 1.5 cups to fill up a tray of whatever puree you're using. You also, when you're spreading it out, you want to make sure it gets pretty even. I did get some spots that were a little thinner than others. That will cause holes and you won't get a consistent roll up fruit leather. So once you're done dehydrating it, you just take it out of the dehydrator. Hopefully this will peel off pretty easy. You're gonna have gaps at the areas where it's kind of, I'm gonna have gaps because I have a little metal spatula that works great for this. If you have one of those, that's a great idea. Just kind of go through and release it. And this is where making sure that it's spread evenly through the whole tray is really important. Because if it's not going to come up off the tray very easy. Like there's a thin spot right there. And another trick is, because you don't want to deal with a whole sheet, is that you can cut it into pieces and pull up that way. And I think that's what I'm going to do. So I'm just going to cut it right here. Cut it, and you could probably use kitchen scissors and it would be a lot easier, but see there, I just pulled off a whole sheet. We're gonna do this on a clean counter. And if you're lucky enough to have more than one tray, you can make a crud load of these, and then you have a healthier snack. See how it just comes off in nice little sheets? And then you can have a healthier snack for your kids for after school or for their lunches. And like I said before, you can put as much or as little sweetener in this as you want. A little note, I like using honey, but it has a higher glycemic index than sugar actually. So if you're using a small amount, the benefits outweigh the bad, but if you're like it a little sweeter, you're probably going to want to use a coconut sugar or even just cane sugar, because they actually have a lower glycemic index than honey. All right, so now I've got that off my sheet. And so what you're going to want to do to store these or to give them to your kids so they're not a huge sticky mess is you're going to use some parchment paper to put them on. Parchment paper is the easiest. I imagine you could use wax paper as well. So you just kind of lay it on your parchment paper. Now that you have like a strip with the fruit leather on it and the wax paper or the parchment paper underneath, you're just going to roll it up. And so now you can tape that if you want so that you can put it in your kids' lunches, but then you have this awesome fruit leather that's natural and healthy and tastes amazing. The whole reason you want to put this on a wax piece of paper or parchment is so that it doesn't stick to itself and you end up with a mess. But there you have it. Fresh, homemade, healthy fruit roll-up. Thanks for hanging out with me today and learning how to make a healthy snack for your kids to either put in their lunches for back to school or for after school snacks. If you like this type of content, don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell so you always know when we have a new video. We like to post videos once a week on how you can nurture a simpler, happier, healthier home.